10 years later, Kang Minute Jae would still remember the sound of that phone call. It was a quiet morning in Seoul. The kind of morning where everything looked peaceful, but one message could destroy a person's entire world. Minute Jae stood beside the large window of his apartment, watching the city wake up below him. The same city where he had built his company. The same city where he had achieved everything people told him he should want. A successful career. A respected name. A comfortable life. But despite having everything, there was one thing he could never escape. A memory. His phone suddenly vibrated on the table. He looked down. One message. One name. A name he had not seen in years. Seo Hyrin. For several seconds, Minute Jae did not move. His expression changed. The confident businessman disappeared. And for a brief moment, he became the young man who had once loved someone before everything went wrong. The message was simple. We need to talk. There is something you deserve to know. Minute Jae's hands tightened around the phone. Because deep inside, he already knew something. Some doors should never be opened again. Some memories should remain buried. But the past has a way of returning when people least expect it. And for Minute Jae, that past would eventually cost him the one person who loved him without asking for anything in return. The person who saw his heart before she ever knew his name. But before that painful morning. Before the betrayal. Before the regret. There was a time when Kang Minute Jae and Amara Okafor believed their love could survive anything. A time when they were simply two strangers who found each other in the middle of a storm. 3 years earlier, Kang Minute Jae was not the powerful businessman everyone knew. At that time, he was a man carrying invisible pain. After losing his father, Minute Jae became responsible for problems he never expected. The family company was struggling. People who once stood beside him suddenly disappeared. Friends who called him every day stopped answering. Everyone wanted to be close to him when life was easy. But when life became difficult, he discovered who truly cared. One rainy evening, Minute Jae entered a small restaurant in Seoul. He was exhausted. His expensive clothes were hidden under a simple coat. His expensive watch remained covered beneath his sleeve. That night, he did not want to be recognized. He did not want people asking questions. He only wanted a quiet place where nobody knew his name. He sat alone in the corner. The restaurant was busy. People laughed. Families enjoyed their meals. Couples talked. But Minute Jae felt completely alone. Then someone walked toward his table. A young woman carrying a bowl of warm food. Her name was Amara Okafor. She was a Nigerian woman living in Seoul, working hard to build a life far away from home. She noticed something others ignored. The man sitting alone was not arrogant. He was hurting. She placed the bowl on his table. Please eat. Minute Jae looked up. I didn't order this. I know. Then why did you bring it? Amara smiled gently. Because you looked like you needed it. Minute Jae looked away. I am fine. Amara studied his face. She had heard those words before. People often said they were fine when they were silently struggling. Sometimes, she said softly, people who say they are fine need kindness the most. For the first time that night, Minute Jae looked directly at her. Not because she was beautiful. Not because she was different. But because she saw something nobody else saw. A person. Not a businessman. Not a name. Not money. Just a person. After that night, Minute Jae thought he would never see Amara again. But life had other plans. The following week, he returned to the same restaurant. And there she was. Cleaning tables. Smiling at customers. Helping everyone around her. She noticed him immediately. You came back. Minute Jae looked surprised. You remember me? Amara laughed. You always sit in the same corner. A small smile appeared on his face. You pay attention too much. No, she replied. Most people just don't pay enough attention. That sentence stayed with him. Because Minute Jae had spent years surrounded by people who noticed his success. But Amara noticed his silence. Slowly, they began talking. At first, their conversations were simple. Food. Weather. Life in Seoul. But over time, they became longer. They talked about dreams. They talked about fears. They talked about the things people usually hide. Minute Jae discovered that Amara was not interested in his achievements. She did not know about his company. She did not care about his family name. She liked him because of the small things. The way he listened. The way he protected strangers. The way he secretly helped people even when nobody was watching. And Minute Jae discovered something about Amara. Her kindness was not weakness. It was strength. She had faced difficulties, but she never allowed pain to make her cruel. One evening, while walking through the streets of Seoul, Minute J asked her a question. Why are you always kind to people? Amara looked at the city lights. Because everyone is fighting a battle we cannot see. Minute J became quiet. Because he knew she was right. And somewhere between those small conversations, between shared meals, between laughter and quiet moments, two strangers slowly became the most important person in each other's lives. Their love did not happen overnight. It was not built on expensive gifts. It was not built on status. It was built on small moments. Minute J learned how to laugh again because of Amara. Amara learned that she did not always have to be strong alone because of Minute J. When she became sick, he stayed beside her. When he faced problems at work, she reminded him that failure did not define him. They became each other's safe place. But their relationship was not easy. Some people questioned them. Some people believed two people from different backgrounds could never understand each other. But Minute J never cared about those opinions. One evening, he held Amara's hand beside the Han River. Amara. She looked at him. I don't know what the future will bring. He paused. But I know I want you in it. Amara smiled. Are you sure? Minute J nodded. I have never been more sure about anything. Those words became a promise. A promise they believed would last forever. 1 year later, Amara walked down the aisle toward the man she loved. Minute J watched her approach. And in that moment, he believed he was the luckiest man alive. He was not marrying someone who loved his money. He was not marrying someone who wanted his family name. He was marrying the woman who gave him kindness when he had nothing to offer. Their wedding was simple but beautiful. Two people. Two cultures. One promise. I will always choose you. Those were the words Minute J whispered to her. And Amara believed him. For the next 2 years, they built a life together. They cooked together. They traveled together. They celebrated small victories. They faced difficult days. They believed their love was strong enough to survive anything. But they did not know something. The greatest danger to their marriage would not come from strangers. It would come from the past. And one day, a single message would remind Minute J of a love he thought he had forgotten. A love that would begin the biggest mistake of his life. For 2 years, Amara and Kang Minute J lived the kind of life many people dreamed about. From the outside, their marriage looked perfect. They lived in a beautiful home in Seoul. Minute J continued building his company, while Amara worked hard and supported him through every difficult moment. But their happiness was never because of luxury. It was because of the small things. Every morning, Amara prepared breakfast before Minute J left for work. Even when he was busy, he always tried to come home for dinner. Sometimes they talked for hours about nothing important. Sometimes they simply sat together in silence. And those quiet moments meant everything. One evening, Minute J returned home later than usual. Amara was sitting on the sofa reading a book. When she saw him enter, she smiled. You are finally home. Minute J smiled back. Did you miss me? Amara closed the book. Maybe a little. He laughed. Only a little? She looked away, pretending to be serious. Maybe more than a little. Those simple moments were the reason Minute J loved her. Amara did not bring noise into his life. She brought peace. She was the person who reminded him that behind every business decision and every responsibility, there was still a human being who needed love. But sometimes, people do not realize how valuable something is until they are close to losing it. And Minute J was about to make a mistake that would change everything. The day everything started to change looked like an ordinary day. There was no warning. No sign. No dramatic moment. Just a normal afternoon that would later become the memory Minute J wished he could erase. Minute J was sitting in his office reviewing documents when his phone suddenly vibrated. He ignored it at first. But the message notification appeared again. He looked down. A name appeared on the screen. Seo Hyrin. For several seconds, Minute J stopped breathing. That name belonged to a chapter of his life he thought was finished. Before Amara. Before marriage. Before the promises he made. Hyrin was his first love. The woman he once believed he would spend his life with. But their relationship ended years ago. At least, that was what he told himself. His fingers moved toward the phone. He hesitated. A part of him knew he should not open it. A part of him knew some memories were dangerous. But curiosity is powerful. He opened the message. Minute J, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. But I need to see you. There are things we never talked about. Minute J stared at the screen. His heart became heavy. Not because he no longer loved Amara, but because the past had suddenly reminded him of feelings he never completely faced. That evening, when he arrived home, Amara immediately noticed something was different. She looked at him carefully. Is something wrong? Minute J forced a smile. No. Just work. Amara nodded. But deep inside, she felt something she could not explain. For the first time in a long time, her husband felt far away. 2 days later, Minute J agreed to meet Hiren. He told himself it was only a conversation. Nothing more. He told himself he was only looking for closure. But sometimes, the heart does not follow the rules people create for themselves. Hiren was waiting at a quiet cafe. When Minute J entered, she looked up. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Years had passed. But some memories do not disappear. You look different, Hiren said softly. Minute J sat down. So do you. A small smile appeared on her face. They talked about the past. About mistakes. About the relationship that ended without proper answers. Hiren told him about the difficult years she had experienced. She told him she regretted losing him. And Minute J listened. That was the first mistake. Not because listening was wrong, but because he allowed himself to become emotionally involved. When he returned home that night, Amara noticed immediately. You seem distracted. Minute J looked at her. I'm just tired. But the truth was different. A door from his past had opened. And instead of closing it, he was standing in front of it. At first, Minute J tried to convince himself nothing had changed. He still loved Amara. He still cared about his wife. But slowly, small things began happening. Things Amara noticed. He started checking his phone more often. He smiled at messages he refused to explain. He became quieter during dinner. He started coming home later. And every time Amara asked what was wrong, he gave the same answer. Work. But Amara knew her husband. She knew when he was stressed. She knew when he was tired. And this was different. This was distance. One evening, she prepared his favorite meal. She waited. 1 hour passed. Then another. Finally, Minute J walked through the door. The food was already cold. Amara looked at him. I thought we were having dinner together. Minute J removed his jacket. I'm sorry. Something came up. She looked down. Something from work. He paused for a moment. Yes. That pause hurt more than the answer. Because sometimes silence reveals what words try to hide. Amara did not know the truth yet. But she felt something slipping away. The man who once ran home to see her was slowly becoming a stranger inside their own home. Minute J knew he was making a mistake. Deep inside, he knew. Every time he looked at Amara, he remembered the woman who had stood beside him when nobody else did. He remembered the rainy night when she gave him food without knowing his name. He remembered the woman who loved him before knowing his success. And yet, he continued. Because mistakes rarely begin with one huge decision. They begin with small choices. A message. A meeting. A secret. A moment where someone chooses what feels good instead of what is right. Hiren became part of his thoughts again. And Minute J started living between two worlds. One world was the life he built with Amara. A life filled with loyalty, kindness, and real love. The other was a memory. A chapter he never properly closed. And while Minute J was trapped between the past and the present, Amara was slowly losing the man she married. But the hardest pain was still waiting. Because soon, she would discover the truth. And when she did, she would have to decide whether love was enough to forgive the person who broke her heart. A marriage does not break in one day. It breaks slowly. Through moments that seem small. Through conversations that never happen. Through feelings that are ignored until they become impossible to hide. For Amara, the hardest part was not that Minute J was busy. She understood his responsibilities. She understood the pressure he carried. She had loved him when he had nothing. She had stood beside him when his life was falling apart. But this was different. The man she knew was disappearing. The husband who used to tell her everything now guarded his phone like it contained a secret. The man who used to notice when she was tired now walked past her without asking if she was okay. And every time she felt him pulling away, she tried harder. She cooked his favorite meals. She waited for him after work. She planned quiet evenings together. But the more she reached for him, the further away he seemed. One night, Amara sat beside him on the sofa. Minute J. He looked away from his phone. Yes? Are we okay? The question surprised him. He looked at her. What do you mean? Amara lowered her eyes. I feel like I am losing you. For a moment, guilt appeared on his face. Because he knew she was right. But instead of telling the truth, he chose the easier answer. You are imagining things. Those words hurt her. Not because they were cruel. But because they made her question herself. Maybe she was overthinking. Maybe she was worrying too much. Maybe everything was fine. But deep inside, her heart already knew. Something had changed. Minute J promised himself he would end it. He told himself he would stop seeing Hiren. He told himself he would protect his marriage. But every time he received a message from her, he answered. Every time she asked to meet, he went. And every time he returned home, he carried another secret. The woman he once loved had returned, but she was not the same person anymore. She was lonely. She was regretful. And she knew exactly how to remind Minute J of the past. You were happy before everything changed, Hiren told him one evening. Minute J looked at his coffee. I am happy now. But even he could hear the weakness in his voice. Hiren stuttered him. Are you? That question stayed with him. Because it was easier to blame confusion than accept the truth. The truth was that he was allowing himself to be pulled away. He was hurting the person who had loved him the most. Meanwhile, Amara continued believing her husband would return to her. She remembered the man who held her hand on their wedding day. The man who promised he would always choose her. She did not know that while she was protecting their marriage, he was slowly destroying it. The truth did not come from Minute J. That was what hurt Amara the most. She discovered it by accident. One evening, Minute J left his phone on the table while taking a shower. Amara was not searching for anything. She trusted him. She had always trusted him. But then the phone lit up. Another message. Another name. Another secret. She froze. She did not want to look. A part of her already knew. But another part of her needed the truth. Her hands trembled as she opened the message. And in that moment, the world she knew collapsed. There were conversations. There were meetings. There were words between Minute J and Hiren that no wife should ever have to read. Amara sat there silently. No screaming. No anger. Just pain. Because the person who hurt her was the same person she had trusted with her entire heart. When Minute J came out, he immediately knew something was wrong. He saw her face. He saw the phone in her hand. And for the first time, he could not find an excuse. Amara. Her voice was quiet. How long? Minute J said nothing. And that silence gave her the answer. Amara waited for an explanation. She waited for him to tell her that everything was a misunderstanding. She waited for him to say he made a mistake but still chose her. But Minute J struggled to speak. Because sometimes the truth is painful not because it is complicated, but because it is simple. He had made choices. And those choices had hurt her. I never stopped caring about you, Minute J finally said. Amara looked at him. Then why did you make me feel like I was alone? He had no answer. Because there was no answer that could repair the damage. The next morning, Amara packed her things. Slowly. Quietly. She did not take expensive jewelry. She did not take things that belonged to his world. She only took what was hers. Minute J watched her. Part of him wanted to stop her. But another part knew he had lost the right to ask her to stay. At the door, Amara looked back one last time. I hope you find what you were looking for. Her words were not filled with hate. That made them hurt even more. Because anger would have been easier. But Amara was simply broken. And sometimes the quietest goodbye is the most painful one. She closed the door. And for the first time in years, Minute J was alone. Amara walked away with no clear plan. The woman who once had a beautiful home now carried everything she owned in one suitcase. She had no idea what would happen next. She only knew one thing. She could not stay somewhere her heart was constantly being broken. The city that once felt full of possibilities suddenly felt cold. She walked through the streets of Seoul as rain began falling. People passed by without noticing the woman whose entire life had changed in one night. But sometimes, when one chapter ends, another chapter begins in the most unexpected way. As Amara walked down a quiet street, she noticed an elderly woman standing near the road. The woman looked weak. Unsteady. Before Amara could think, the elderly woman collapsed. People nearby stopped. Some looked. Some whispered. But nobody moved. Except Amara. She dropped her suitcase and ran toward her. Huh? Can you hear me? The woman slowly opened her eyes. And in that moment, Amara did not see wealth. She did not see status. She saw someone who needed help. She did not know who this woman was. She did not know that this moment would completely change her future. She only knew one thing. Someone needed kindness. And kindness was something Amara had never lost. Amara never imagined that the worst day of her life would become the beginning of her greatest transformation. That night, she had lost the man she loved. She had lost the home she built. She had lost the future she thought was guaranteed. But there was one thing Minute J could never take away from her. Her heart. Even after everything that happened, Amara still had compassion. And that compassion was the reason she stopped on that rainy street. The elderly woman lying on the ground did not know her. She had nothing to offer Amara. No money. No connection. No promise of a better life. But Amara did not think about any of those things. She only saw someone who needed help. Please open your eyes. The elderly woman slowly moved. Her voice was weak. Who are you? Amara held her hand. My name is Amara. Don't worry. I will help you. People around them watched. Some wondered why a stranger would stop her own journey to help someone else. But Amara did not need an audience. She did not need praise. Helping people had always been part of who she was. An ambulance arrived shortly after. Amara stayed with the woman until she was taken to the hospital. Even after everything she had lost, she refused to leave someone else alone. She did not know it yet. But the woman she had just helped was about to change the direction of her entire life. The next morning, Amara received a phone call. She expected it to be about hospital expenses or paperwork. Instead, she heard a surprising voice. Miss Amara? Yes? This is Han Isuk's assistant. She would like to speak with you. Amara was confused. Han Isuk. The name sounded familiar. When she arrived at the hospital, she finally understood why. The elderly woman she had helped was not an ordinary person. She was Chairwoman Han Isuk. A respected businesswoman who had built one of Korea's largest companies. A woman whose name was known across the country. Amara stood quietly. She remembered seeing wealthy people before. People who had everything. But many of them lacked something important. Kindness. The chairwoman looked at her carefully. You stayed with me all night. Amara nodded. Yes. Why? The question surprised her. Because you needed someone. The chairwoman stared at her. Most people who approached her wanted something. Money. Opportunities. Connections. But this young woman had helped her without knowing who she was. You knew nothing about me. No. You did not know I was wealthy. No. You still helped me. Amara smiled softly. I don't think kindness should depend on someone's name. For the first time in a long time, Chairwoman Han Isuk felt something she had almost forgotten. Trust. After leaving the hospital, Amara planned to continue her life alone. She did not want pity. She did not want anyone feeling sorry for her. But Chairwoman Han Isuk saw something in her. Something rare. Strength. The chairwoman offered Amara a job as her personal assistant. At first, Amara hesitated. I don't have experience working for someone like you. Han Isuk smiled. Experience can be taught. She looked directly at her. But character cannot. Those words touched Amara. Because after everything she had been through, she had started questioning herself. Was she not enough? Was she easy to leave? Was she foolish for loving someone completely? But Han Isuk showed her something important. Someone else's betrayal did not reduce her value. Slowly, Amara became part of the chairwoman's life. She organized her schedule. She accompanied her to appointments. She listened to stories about her past. And most importantly, she gave her something money could never buy. Companionship. The chairwoman had built an empire. But she had spent many years feeling alone. Amara reminded her that family was not always created by blood. Sometimes, family was created by the people who choose to stay. Working beside Chairwoman Han Isuk changed Amara. Not because of money. Not because of power. But because she learned. The chairwoman taught her about business. Leadership. Decision-making. And the responsibility that came with influence. At first, Amara felt afraid. She had never imagined herself sitting in powerful meetings. She had never imagined people listening to her opinions. She had always been the person supporting someone else. Now, she was learning how to stand on her own. One evening, while reviewing company documents, Amara looked overwhelmed. I don't think I belong here. Chairwoman Han Isuk looked at her. Why? Because everyone here is more experienced than me. The chairwoman smiled. Amara, many people have knowledge. She paused. But very few people have wisdom. Amara looked at her. You think I have that? I know you do. Those words became a turning point. Because Amara finally understood something. Her kindness was not a weakness. Her patience was not a weakness. Her ability to care was not something to be ashamed of. Those were the qualities that made her powerful. Years passed. Amara and chairwoman Hannah Mysuk became more than employer and employee. They became family. The older woman had never had children. Amara had lost the family she thought she would have. Together, they filled an empty space in each other's hearts. But time was not something anyone could control. One evening, Hannah Mysuk became seriously ill. Amara stayed beside her. She refused to leave. The same way she had stayed years earlier on that rainy street. The chairwoman held her hand. Amara. Yes? There is something I need you to understand. Amara looked worried. I am not leaving you alone. The older woman smiled sadly. You have already given me something I thought I would never have again. What? Family. Tears filled Amara's eyes. The chairwoman continued. Promise me something. What? Never let the pain someone caused you decide who you become. Those words stayed with Amara forever. Before passing away, Chairwoman Hannah Mysuk made one final decision. She left her company, her legacy, everything she had built, to the one person who had helped her when she had nothing to gain. Amara, the woman who walked away from a broken marriage with one suitcase, was now the owner of a powerful empire. But even with success surrounding her, there was still one memory she could never completely escape. The man she once loved. Years had passed since Amara walked out of Minute J's life. But for him, that moment never truly ended. Some memories do not fade with time. They become part of a person. Every morning, when Minute J woke up, he remembered the woman who used to smile at him before anyone else. The woman who believed in him before the world respected him. The woman who stood beside him when he had nothing to give her. Amara. The woman he lost because he failed to protect the love they built. After their separation, Minute J's life did not become better. At first, he thought he had only made one mistake. He believed time would fix everything. He believed Amara would eventually understand. But time did something different. It showed him the truth. The people who surrounded him after Amara left were not there because they cared about him. They cared about what he had. His money. His position. His influence. When he faced difficulties, many of those people disappeared. And that was when he finally understood something painful. The woman who had the least to gain from loving him was the woman who loved him the most. One evening, Minute J sat alone in the same type of small restaurant where he had first met Amara. The place was different. The city was different. But his memories remained. He remembered her placing food in front of him. He remembered her saying, "Sometimes people who say they are fine need kindness the most." He closed his eyes. Because the person who saved him emotionally was the same person he destroyed emotionally. One morning, Minute J saw something that changed everything. His company was attending a major business event in Seoul. Important leaders, investors, and executives were gathered in one place. Minute J entered the hall expecting an ordinary meeting. Until the name on the presentation screen appeared. Amara Okafor. For a moment, he thought he had misunderstood. The woman he remembered leaving with one suitcase was now the woman everyone was waiting to meet. The doors opened, and Amara walked in. But she was different. Not because she had expensive clothes. Not because people respected her. But because she carried herself with confidence. She was no longer the woman who wondered if she was enough. She knew her worth. People stood when she entered. Executives greeted her. Employees respected her. She had become a successful CEO. A leader. A woman who built something beautiful from the pain she experienced. Minute J watched silently. The realization hit him harder than anything else. While he was holding on to the past, she had built a future. Their eyes met briefly. For a moment, the years disappeared. He saw the woman he loved. And she saw the man who once broke her heart. But this time, she did not look angry. She did not look bitter. She simply looked peaceful. And somehow, that hurt him more. Because he realized she had healed without him. After the event, Minute J finally found the courage to speak to her. He waited outside. Not as a powerful businessman. Not as someone expecting forgiveness. Just as a man who knew he had made a terrible mistake. Amara. She stopped. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence carried years of pain. I have wanted to say this for a long time. Amara looked at him calmly. Say what you need to say. Minute J lowered his eyes. I was wrong. Those 3 words were harder for him than any business decision he had ever made. I hurt the person who loved me the most. His voice became quiet. I spent years thinking I lost you because of circumstances. He looked at her. But the truth is, I lost you because of my choices. Amara listened. She had imagined this moment many times. She imagined being angry. She imagined asking him why. But standing there, she realized something. She was no longer the same woman who left that house years ago. I forgive you, Minute J. His eyes lifted. But before hope could appear, she continued. Forgiveness does not mean we return to where we were. He became silent. Because he understood. Some things can be repaired. But some things can only be accepted. I loved you, Amara said softly. And a part of me always will. She paused. But I had to learn how to love myself too. Those words stayed with him forever. Years earlier, Amara believed losing Minute J meant losing everything. She was wrong. Sometimes losing something painful is the beginning of finding something greater. Amara built a successful company. She helped others. She created opportunities for people who had once felt invisible. And most importantly, she found peace. Minute J also changed. He became a different man. A man who understood that love was not something to assume would always remain. It was something to protect. Something to appreciate. Something to choose every day. Their story did not end with hatred. It did not end with revenge. It ended with understanding. Because sometimes 2 people can love each other deeply. And still hurt each other. Sometimes forgiveness is the final form of love. Amara and Minute J went their separate ways. But they carried something valuable from the years they shared. The memories. The lessons. The love that once existed. And the understanding that one careless choice can change a lifetime. Because the past may always leave a scar. But a scar is proof that something survived. And in the end, Amara did not become successful because she wanted to prove Minute J wrong. She became successful because she finally discovered herself. And Minute J did not regret losing her because she became powerful. He regretted losing her because she was the one person who loved him when he had nothing to offer. The woman who gave him kindness. The woman who gave him hope. The woman he should have protected. Sometimes the person who loves you the most is not the person you lose because love disappeared. Sometimes you lose them because you failed to protect what you had. Cherish the people who stand beside you before the world knows your name. Because true love is not measured by what someone can gain from you. It is measured by what they give when they have nothing to gain. Thank you so much for following this journey with me. Please like and subscribe to this channel, and turn on the notification button as it helps us bring you more heartwarming stories. See you in the next one. Red Heart.